Hello creators and creative friends, welcome back to the channel. If you want to get the best possible texture and detail from the Krea 2 model, I think you'll really like this workflow I put together. This workflow uses a two-pass image generation process with two Clownshark samplers. I also spent some time testing out different samplers and scheduler combinations too. This helps ensure we get the best possible image quality. I'll walk you through the workflow using Running Hub, the cloud-based ComfyUI platform I used to build it. If you'd like to learn more about Running Hub, you'll find the link in the video description. Let's dive right into the details. In this workflow, I'm actually not using the Krea 2 Turbo model. Instead, I'm using the raw model paired with the Turbo LoRA. Why do it this way? Well, it provides more seed variety. It also does a better job of sticking to a prompt than just using the Turbo model by itself. When it comes to the strength of the Turbo LoRA, I actually set it right at 0.6. Of course, you can always play around with different values to get more variety. Just to show you an example, I generated 3 images so we can compare them. The image all the way on the left was made a Krea 2 raw model and the Turbo LoRA set a strength of 1. The middle image was generated using just the Krea 2 Turbo model. When you look closely, you can see that those two images look incredibly similar. However, the image on the far right stands out as very different. That one was created with a Krea 2 raw model and a Turbo LoRA strength of 0.6. Moving on, let's talk about the text encoder. This tool can actually be used to enhance your prompt. You can start by typing in a very simple user prompt. From there, the text encoder steps in. It enhances your simple prompt based on the system prompt you have set. By the end of this process, the node generates a much more detailed and effective prompt for you. Now we can take a closer look at the two-pass setup. At this point, a big question might pop into your mind. You might be wondering why we should even bother using two key samplers for image generation. Honestly, I had the exact same question. Because of that, I decided to do some testing. Let's look at a quick comparison to see the difference. The image on the left was generated using only one pass. On the other hand, the image on the right used the two-pass method. Both of these images started from the exact same prompt. Let's zoom right in on her face. Right away, you can see that the textures are completely different. The face on the left looks a little too polished and smooth. The face on the right looks much more realistic. If you look at the sweater, the textures there are also quite different. This shows that the two-pass setup really does provide more texture. This is especially true if your final output image is going to be huge. For instance, in this specific case, our final resolution is a massive 4 megapixels. That being said, the resolution during the first pass can actually remain small. Here, I only set the resolution to 0.6 megapixels. The size of the latent image is 976 by 640. This size is pretty similar to what you would get from SD 1.5 based models. Keeping the size small in this first pass is a smart move. It ensures that the initial image generation stays very fast. I also want to drop a quick reminder here. You really do not have to use Krea 2 models for your first pass. The ecosystem for SD 1.5 and SDXL is simply more complete right now. There is a huge variety of LoRa models, ControlNet models, and IP adapters out there. You can simply take advantage of all those tools. Plus, using those older models gives you few restrictions depending on the type of content you want to create. Now let's talk about samplers. I prefer to use the Clownshark Sampler. I chose this one instead of the standard case sampler for a very specific reason. It can give you much more texture while using fewer sampling steps. I actually ran a test to prove this. Let's check it out together. To generate this first image, I went with the standard case sampler. I set the sampler type to Res2s. Then, I set the scheduler to simple. Finally, I kept the sampling steps at 4. To generate the second image, I switched over to the Clownshark Sampler. Aside from that change, all the other settings remained exactly the same as the previous test. Let's compare the two output images side by side. The image on the left was generated with the Clownshark Sampler. Let's zoom in a bit closer. Just as expected, the image made by the Clownshark Sampler has noticeably more texture on the face. The specific sampler I used inside the first Clownshark node is Hum3S. I tried out a lot of different samplers beforehand. After all that, I found that Hum3S is definitely the best one for this job. I also tested a very similar option called Hum2S. Let's compare those two side by side. The left image was generated by Hum3S, and the right image was made by Hum2S. As you can see, there is some obvious underfitting in the right image compared to the left. The neat texture of the skirt just is not delicate enough. Also, it looks like there are rings on her fingers, but they are not fully formed. Next, let's compare Res2S with Hum2S. The image on the left was generated by Res2S. The image on the right was done by Hum2S. Take a close look at their eyes. I personally think Hum2S did a much better job there. So after looking at both of these comparisons, we can draw a solid conclusion. Among all the tests I did, Hum3S remains the absolute best choice for generating small-size images. When it came to choosing a scheduler, I went with DDM Uniform. I like this one because it provides a lot more variety for different types of compositions. Now we are ready to move on to the second pass. We start with the Scale Image to Total Pixels node. This node takes the image from the first group and upscales it to a full 4 megapixels. After it finishes scaling up, the image gets imported directly to the second Clownshark Sampler. Let's take a look at the final output image. You can see right away that the overall compositions are very similar. However, a massive amount of detail has been added during this second pass. For the samplers in this step, you actually have many suitable options. Just to name a few, you could use Res2M, Abnorset2M, or Days2M. You could also try Res2S, or even Res4S month costs. So what are the actual differences between all of these? Let's start by comparing Abnorset2M with Days2M. The image on the left used Abnorset2M. The image on the right used Days2M. Let's zoom in for a better view. I am sure you have already noticed that the face on the left has quite a bit more texture. Sometimes you might feel like there is a little too much texture on the face. If that happens, you can easily try another sampler like Res2S. Let's compare Res2S with Days2M this time. The image on the left is Res2S. Let's zoom in again. As you can clearly see, the face on the left now has significantly less texture. You might also want to give Res4S Mountcast a try. Let's see how it compares to Days2M. This time, the image on the right is Res4S Mountcast. The skin texture on this right image is noticeably smoother and a lot more delicate. When setting the scheduler for the second Clownshark Sampler, I highly recommend using Beta. Let's compare the Beta scheduler with a simple scheduler. The image on the right used Beta. Interestingly, you can see that there is more texture on the face on the right. You can also spot more texture in the bricks on the wall behind her. Alright, that covers the entire setup for this 2-pass workflow. If you would like to download this workflow for yourself, please consider joining our community to support the channel. Thank you so much for watching today. I will see you all in the next video.